Wednesday, April 10th, 1912. Flora Fortune was grateful for the steadiness of Mr. Beatty's arm as they hurried along the platform at London's Waterloo Station, slicing a swath through the sea of humanity, separating them from the first-class special boat train bound for the new London and South Western Railway facilities at Southampton's berth 44. A cacophony of sounds echoed off the soaring ceiling of the station, whistles and escaping steam, grinding wheels and the slam of doors, raised voices and pounding feet. Flora didn't even attempt to speak. In any case, she needed all her breath to keep up with the porters hastening ahead of them, carrying poor Mr. Ross on a stretcher. He was so weakened from dysentery that he couldn't even walk to his train compartment, but nonetheless he was determined to return to Winnipeg. She couldn't blame him. Being ill was miserable enough without being so far from the comforts of home. Flora hunched her shoulders against the icy breeze that whisked through the station. She hoped the temperatures were more favorable along the coast in Southampton, for they had woken to a decided chill in the air. After spending months in the warmer climes of the Mediterranean and southern Europe, their bodies were no longer acclimated to the cold, forcing them to pull topcoats and hats from the depths of their trunks. Father had even jested about donning his old buffalo coat, matted and moth-eaten though it was, and far from gentlemanly in appearance. Fortunately, Mother had been able to convince him to wear a dark woolen coat instead, though Father had then insisted on taking up valuable space in the trunks bound for their ship cabins, rather than those tagged "Not Wanted," which would be stored in the holds until they reached New York. Flora exhaled in relief as they spied Mr. McCaffrey and his brown overcoat in the doorway to a compartment just ahead. He was the last of the trio of Winnipeg gentlemen who had accompanied the Fortunes on their grand tour. Mr. Beatty, Mr. McCaffrey, and poor Mr. Ross, now relegated to his stretcher. A fellow traveling companion had genially dubbed them the Three Musketeers, and the ridiculous sobriquet had stuck. Not that the bachelors seemed to mind. They were often lumped together. Mr. McCaffrey had hurried before them to ready the space for his sick friend, while she and Mr. Beatty waited for the porters to see to Mr. Ross. Mr. McCaffrey stepped to the side, stroking the sides of his light mustache as he watched the porters begin the delicate work of maneuvering the stretcher and its occupant into the train. "Won't be much longer, Hugo," Mr. McCaffrey told him encouragingly. "Thompson, why don't you escort Miss Fortune to her family?" he suggested. "I'll see Hugo settled." Mr. Beatty nodded, turning their steps. "This way." Accepting there was nothing more she could do, Flora allowed herself to be guided into the train, carefully maneuvering the broad, rolled brim of her picture hat through the doorway.